Some people are born with a fire inside them that ordinary life can never satisfy. They crave the kind of adrenaline that makes your heart slam against your ribs, the kind that whispers, "What if?" even when every warning light is flashing red. They chase the wildest, most dangerous stunts because standing still feels like dying slowly. But here's the heartbreaking truth. Sometimes the rush they live for becomes the very thing that takes them away from us forever. In this video, we're going to remember 5 incredible human beings who pushed the limits of what's possible and paid the ultimate price. Their stories are filled with courage, obsession, heartbreak, and a raw reminder that the line between glory and tragedy is thinner than we like to admit. These aren't just tales of failure, they're stories of people who refused to live small, even when the cost turned out to be everything. Let's start with a man who turned a wild idea into a homemade rocket and launched himself toward the sky. Most of us accept the shape of our planet without ever needing proof beyond a simple photo from space or a basic science lesson. But for some, doubt runs deeper. They see conspiracies everywhere, and they want undeniable evidence with their own eyes. That's the world Mad Mike Hughes lived in. Born in 1956, Mike was a limousine driver by trade, a stunt performer at heart, and someone who loved challenging the status quo. He had already made a name for himself in the early 2000s by setting a Guinness World Record for the longest jump in a limousine, a wild, crowd-pleasing feat that showed his flair for the dramatic. Years later, in 2018, he successfully launched a smaller steam-powered rocket to about 1,175 feet, proving he wasn't just talking big. But Mike wanted more, much more. He became known for his belief, or at least his very public claim, that the Earth was flat, whether he truly believed it deep down or used the idea to attract attention and funding. One thing was clear. He was determined to see the horizon from high enough to settle the debate once and for all. He built his own rocket in the California desert, a homemade steam-powered machine designed to carry him up to around 5,000 feet. Cameras would record everything. He would look out with his own eyes, and the world, he hoped, would finally see what he saw. The launch was scheduled for February 22, 2020, on private land near Barstow, California. A small group of witnesses, including journalists and friends, gathered in the dusty desert heat. The rocket stood tall on its launch rig. Mike climbed inside the cramped cockpit, strapped in, and prepared for what he hoped would be his moment of truth. As the countdown ended and the steam thrust kicked in, the rocket shot upward. For a brief second, it looked like everything was going according to plan. Then disaster struck almost instantly. The rocket scraped against the launch structure, tearing away one of the parachutes meant for a safe landing. That parachute deployed too early, got caught in the thrust, and yanked the rocket off course. It arced wildly through the sky before plummeting back down like a lawn dart. Witnesses described the impact as devastating, hitting the desert floor at speeds estimated between 400 and 500 miles per hour. The crash was immediate and unsurvivable. Mike Hughes, 64 years old, was pronounced dead at the scene. His dream of proving his point from the edge of space ended in a cloud of dust and twisted metal. In the days that followed, his former publicist shared a different perspective. He said Mike was eccentric, sure, and loved government conspiracy theories, but the flat Earth angle was largely a publicity stunt to raise money and interest. Others who knew him insisted he meant every word. The debate still lingers today, but what doesn't is the loss. A man who had already survived dangerous stunts and built rockets with his own hands ran out of luck on that final attempt. It wasn't pure inexperience. It was a combination of ambition, imperfect engineering, and the unforgiving physics of high-speed flight. Mike's story leaves us with big questions. How far would you go to prove something you believe in? And when does passion cross over into obsession that blinds us to the risks? If you're already feeling the weight of how quickly things can go wrong when humans chase the extraordinary, stick with me. Because the next story takes us from the skies down to the blinding speed of the desert floor. Speed is a drug like no other. The roar of engines, the blur of the landscape, the way your body fights against forces most people will never feel. Jesse Combs understood that pull better than almost anyone. Born in 1979, Jessie grew up with a love for machines and adrenaline. She became a professional racer, a television personality who appeared on shows like Mythbusters, and someone who refused to let anyone tell her what a woman could or couldn't achieve in the male-dominated world of high-speed records. In October 2013, she set the land speed record for a four-wheeled vehicle, pushing her jet-powered car to an incredible 398 miles per hour on a dry lake bed. But Jessie was never satisfied with good enough. She wanted more. She made multiple attempts to beat her own record, once clocking over 483 miles per hour, though mechanical issues kept those runs from being officially recognized. Her ultimate goal was clear: to surpass the long-standing women's land speed record of 512.71 miles per hour, set by Kitty O'Neill in 1976 in a three-wheeled vehicle. Jessie believed she could do it in a four-wheeled machine and prove that limits were meant to be broken. She joined the North American Eagle Project, a dedicated team working on one of the fastest land vehicles ever built, a jet car designed to chase records. On August 27, 2019, Jessie was on the vast, empty Alvord Desert in southeastern Oregon. The surface looked perfect, hard-packed, dry, seemingly endless. She suited up, climbed into the cockpit, and began her run. The car accelerated smoothly at first, the jet engine screaming as speed built. Jessie pushed it harder and harder. Telemetry later showed she reached an astonishing 522.783 miles per hour on that run, enough to break the record. But as she began to slow down after the measured mile, catastrophe hit without warning. At speeds approaching 550 miles per hour, the front wheel struck something on the desert surface, perhaps a small rock, a hardened clump of dirt, or debris invisible at that velocity. The impact caused a mechanical failure. The entire front wheel assembly collapsed. The car instantly became unstable, tearing itself apart in a violent sequence of events. Jessie suffered blunt force trauma to the head in the initial breakup. The wreckage then caught fire. Emergency responders found the scene devastating. Jessie Combs, just 39 years old, did not survive. The investigation confirmed the cause: a mechanical failure triggered by that single unlucky strike at insane speed. Yet her final recorded run stood. In June 2020, Guinness World Records officially recognized her as the new holder of the women's land speed record. She had achieved her dream, posthumously. Jessie's friends and family described her as fearless, but never reckless. She prepared meticulously. She pushed boundaries because she loved the science, the engineering, and the pure thrill of speed. Her death sent shockwaves through the racing community. It reminded everyone that even the most prepared athletes can fall victim to the tiny variables that become lethal at 500+ miles per hour. What drives someone to keep going back when the risks are so obvious? For Jessie, it was the same fire that burns in every pioneer: the belief that we can do better, go faster, and redefine what's possible. Her story is both heartbreaking and inspiring. A woman who lived life at full throttle and left a record that will stand as a testament to her courage. If these tales of sky and speed are hitting you hard, wait until we move to the snow-covered mountains and the world of extreme competitive sports. Human beings are wired for competition. We love medals, cheers, and the glory of victory. But we also can't look away when athletes combine skill with genuine danger. That's the magic and the risk of events like the X Games. Since 1995, these competitions have celebrated extreme sports with big prizes and even bigger moments. For years, despite serious injuries, the Winter X Games had never seen a fatality in competition. That streak ended in heartbreaking fashion in 2013. Caleb Moore was a talented 25-year-old freestyle snowmobile rider from Texas. He wasn't just participating, he was innovating. Caleb had a reputation for pushing the boundaries of what a snowmobile could do in the air. Backflips, massive jumps, creative tricks. He made it look almost effortless. On January 24, 2013, during the freestyle snowmobile event at Winter X Games Sec 7th in Aspen, Colorado, Caleb lined up for his run. The crowd was hyped. He built up speed, launched off the jump, and attempted a backflip, a maneuver he had landed successfully many times before. This time something was slightly off. He came in just a fraction too slow. As he rotated, the skis of his 450-pound snowmobile caught the lip of the landing ramp. The machine flipped violently. Caleb was thrown over the handlebars. In a sickening moment, the heavy snowmobile came crashing down directly onto his chest. The arena fell silent as medics rushed in. Amazingly, Caleb stood up. He walked away from the crash site under his own power. For a short while, it looked like he had escaped with bruises and maybe a scare. His brother Colton had also been injured earlier that same day, but things seemed manageable. Hours later, the hidden damage revealed itself. The impact had caused severe internal injuries, particularly to his heart. Caleb went into cardiopulmonary arrest. He was rushed to a hospital in Grand Junction, Colorado, where doctors fought desperately to save him. On January 31, 2013, surrounded by family, Caleb Moore passed away. He became the first, and so far only, competitor to die from injuries sustained during an X Games event. The tragedy hit the extreme sports world hard. It sparked conversations about safety standards, jump designs, and whether the pursuit of ever bigger tricks was pushing athletes too far. Caleb wasn't an amateur chasing fame. He was a professional who loved the sport and had dedicated his life to mastering it. His death wasn't the result of carelessness, but of the razor-thin margins that exist when you're flipping heavy machinery in the air at high speed. His family and friends remembered him as kind, innovative, and full of life. The snowmobile community mourned not just a rider, but a bright personality who brought creativity to the sport. Caleb's story serves as a powerful reminder. Even when you walk away from the crash, the invisible damage can sink. He'll claim you later. Claim you later?